welcome to another video. This is my September wrap up. September was a very long month for me. Like, it didn't go by slow, it just felt long. September felt like it was 2 months long. I swear to God, it was just so long, and it wasn't very good. I had kind of a bad month, but we're just gonna talk about the books now. So to go through all the physical books I read first, the first physical book I finished in September was Summer Romance by Anna Monaghan. Monaghan. As you can tell, I had a few summery romances left over that I still wanted to read before summer was quite over. Obviously, I'm very much in the fall spirit, and I have been since September 1st, but I had some romances to read still. So one of those is Summer Romance, and the plot of this one is this woman, Allie, her mom died and her husband asked for a divorce, so now she's like a single mom and she's like been depressed and she's been living in sweatpants, but one day she gets up, she puts on real pants, she goes to the dog park and she meets a guy because her dog peed on his leg. What a meet cute. And I feel like this title, Summer Romance, does this book a disservice because this was so much more than a summer romance. This is one of my favorite books I have read all year. This book was so beautiful, just so... I love this book so much because it wasn't just a summer romance. Obviously, the story between the two romantic leads was a lot more than a summer romance, which you could assume. But there was just I'm literally speechless. There's so much to this book. There was Allie, like, finding herself again after being depressed for a couple years and finding out how she could be herself and also be a good mom because she is such a good mom. And I really loved the way that was depicted because she was a single mom and she was finding her footing as a single mom, but also she's more than just a mom. She's still a person. And it was her figuring out how to be a single mom, how to be a person, how to like figure out career and go through the divorce. And like she has a best friend and I really love the friendship with her best friend too. And then there's a love interest and there was this neighbor. There was like so many moving parts to this book and the best way possible. It was such a well-rounded story and had so much heart. I laughed, I cried, I like sobbed reading this book. It was so good. I did film a reading vlog in September that hopefully will be out in a couple weeks, and this was one of the books in it, and I did film myself crying. I will see if I leave it in or not, but it's there. I cried. I cried a lot. So yeah, obviously if you can't tell, 5 stars. 5 stars, which I was not expecting because I read Same Time Next Year by this author via audiobook sometime over the summer and I wasn't a big fan of that book. There was just a lot of like plot lines I didn't like in that book. I think I liked the writing, but I just didn't like the plot of that one. So I was kind of unsure to go into this one, but I loved it. So I will definitely be giving this author another chance. The next physical book I read in September was A Novel Love Story by Ashley Poston. This was another kind of like lighter romance read that I wanted to read. Bailey, you gotta stop being blind. Poor thing just can't see. He just can't see. I forgot what I was saying. Novel Love Story by Ashley Poston. I have read 7 Year Slip by her last year. That was one of my favorite romances I read last year. It was very, very good. And so I was looking forward to this book because of how much I liked that book. And also just like the plot sounded so good. The premise of this book is that this woman gets stuck in a fictional town of her favorite romance series. Like, that is the bookworm's dream. It sounds so good, but this book just fell so flat for me. I really, really wanted to love this book, and I still love the premise, and I did like the main character. I just feel like it wasn't executed very well, and I feel like this book, it really needed some editing. Like, it really needed some editing. And I feel like all of the, like, book characters, like, from her series, like, the series in this world, I forgot the name of the series. I know the name of the author is Rachel Flowers in the book. It's kind of hard to talk about this book because of that plotline, but I feel like all of the characters in the town had fleshed out stories and they had like plot lines of like stuff they were going through, and there was like a whole plot, like it was like this conflict resolution, happy ending. Like there was just all of those characters had that, and I feel like her story was really lacking because it spent so much time focusing on those other characters. And I also did not like the love story in it. It was barely there. Like the love was barely there. And it's literally called A Novel Love Story. There's a couple on the cover. Like it's obviously supposed to be romance and it's just barely there. There's nothing until like the middle part. Like you meet the guy, but there's just like no romance there until like near the end. And I just didn't really like, it's not that I didn't like them together, I just didn't really feel the chemistry. And the ending, part of the ending was cute, part of it was just like, I don't know, like I was just ready to be done with this book. I was really let down, and like I said, it feels like it really needed to be edited more. I said this in the reading vlog because I also read this in that same reading vlog. And I had to read the phrase minty eyes like 100 times in this book. It was literally every single time they were in a scene together, she was talking about his minty eyes. I get it. His eyes are green, okay? I get it. So because I like this author and I like the premise, I did give this book 3 stars, even though I kind of just said negative things about it. But the premise was there, and I really did like the small town she created for this. And I liked the story she created for the books in the book. Like, I liked all of that. I don't know. I just feel like she could have done more with this idea. And it was just a bit of a letdown. I'll still read her future books, but this one was just a letdown, so 3 stars, and that's being generous. What you doing? What you doing, baby? What you doing, old man? And the last physical book I read in September, also the last book for that reading vlog, is The Reappearance of Rachel Price by Holly Jackson. This is one of my most anticipated new releases of this year because I really love this author. She wrote A Good Girl's Guide to Murder and 5 Survive. And A Good Girl's Guide to Murder is like one of my favorite trilogies. I've read it so many times. I really love her writing. And this one really had a really cool premise, and I was really wondering where she's going to go with it. And so in this book, this girl named Belle, her mom disappears when Belle is like a toddler, and she's like the only witness of the disappearance. She's been missing for like 16 years. And then Belle and her family are doing like a documentary about her mom's disappearance, and her mom reappears. And that's all I knew about it going into it, and I really just didn't know what to expect. And like I said, I had kind of a bad month, especially the like week or so I was reading this book was a really tough time for me. But I was like unsure about whether how I was feeling about the book was related to like my personal life, because I wasn't a huge fan of it. But then it got to like, I think it was like the 70% mark. I was like, okay, I'm into this book. Where's it gonna go? And then it got crazy. I love the way Holly Jackson tells a story. She really knows how to get you invested and then just like blow your mind with plot twists. You do not know what's coming next. And I said this in the reading vlog that I did, but I feel like this book was a mixture of A Good Girl's Guide to Murder and 5 Survive, because it had that like investigative like mystery aspect of A Good Girl's Guide to Murder, but then the like writing itself and the character Belle reminded me a lot of like 5 Survive. And it kind of did the same thing that 5 Survive did with the like kind of slow buildup and then just like insane plot twists. But I like this one a lot more than 5 Survive. The plot twist like level of twistiness and unexpectedness and darkness is the same as like the third A Good Girl's Guide to Murder book. Like not the same plot itself, but like just like the level of like, oh my God, what am I reading? It hit that level. It was so good. I read the last like 30-something% of this book in one sitting. Like I woke up on a Saturday morning at like, it was like really early. It was like 6-something because Bailey wanted to go outside. And then I just laid in bed and read it on my phone. Like I was so obsessed with this book. It ended up being so good and I really loved it. I just love her writing so much. I will read anything she writes. I can't wait to see what she writes next. I did decide on a 4.5 for this book just because the like beginning into the middle was a bit slow and I wasn't a huge fan of it. Again, that might have just been me, so I would like to reread this book to see if that changes my opinion, but still a very good book and I would highly recommend it. So now I'll talk about the ebooks that I read in September. I read 3 ebooks, I think, and that is 2 of the Shatter Me books. I will never ever remember the name of them. I read Defy Me and Reveal Me, and I think Defy Me was the 5th book and Reveal Me was 5.5, like the novella in between. I've been slowly reading through the Shatter Me books over the course of 2024. So I talk about them nearly every month, every other month, whatever. If you don't know what Shatter Me is a dystopian YA series about this girl named Juliet who has a lethal touch. If she touches you, you die. There is a government that wants to use her. There is a rebellion that wants to fight against the government. It's like this whole thing. It's like a lot going on in this world. And I feel like looking at like publication dates, it looks like it was a trilogy that did well and she decided to write more. And so the second half of the series, like the second trilogy, is really wild. And I feel like it was not at all planned from the get-go to be where it got, because it's just insane. It is so insane. And not necessarily in a good way. Like, I'm not expecting the things that are happening, but I'm not liking them either. It's just extremely so far out there. You're not expecting it. You don't understand it. It's just really wild, and they're teenagers, and they're such teenagers. It really gets on my nerves. So that's one thing she did right, is she can write an annoying teenager. Yeah, that's kind of my review for those two books. I will say the novella I really didn't like. It was extremely teenagery, extremely whiny. Most of the novella was a couple having a fight that was pointless and stupid and annoying and a waste of time. However, the end of the novella did set up for book 6. And I did like setting it up, because now I am excited about book 6. Like, I don't care for the series. Okay, I say I don't care for it. It's mid. Like, all of these books have been like 3 stars for me. I just want to know what's going to happen, so I keep reading them. But I only have 1 novel and 1 novella left. Except for I heard the announcement she's coming out with another one, so like I guess I'll have to read that when it comes out. But yeah, my goal is to finish book 6 and 6.5 before the end of 2024, so I would have read the entire series this year. But we'll see. I am getting them from the library, so it's all about like loading them out, and then if I'm in the middle of something, if I want to drop it, if I want to read it, and then yeah, I have 3 more months. I have 3 more months until the end of the year. That's wild. Anyway, the other ebook I read was Keeping the Moon by Sarah Dessen, and I have never read a Sarah Dessen book before. I feel like she is a very popular YA author for people my age, I feel like, or even like older than me too, because, so for example, the book I read, Keeping the Moon, was published in 1999, which is the year I was born. But I do know that other people my age did read her like in middle school. So I feel like people my age and older, that was like her time to shine. And I don't really see people reading her books as much anymore. It's kind of just, I see people talking about her in a nostalgia sense. But I have never read her books before, because when I was in middle school, I thought romance was boring. I only wanted to read romantasy because I wanted that fantasy or sci-fi element with a little bit of romance. But now I'm an adult and I like romance, so I read romance. This book didn't do it for me though. So this book is about this girl who, her mom is like a fitness guru that's like worldwide known or whatever. And her mom is going on like a tour in Europe or something. And so she is stuck living with her aunt for the summer. An aunt she doesn't know very well. Growing up, her and her mom just moved around a lot. They were always on the go. Her mom was severely overweight until she got into fitness. And then she made, whatever the main character's name is, get into fitness too. Oh, I do know her name. It's Coley. Her name's like Nicole and she goes by Coley or something. Yeah. So she made her also get into fitness and made her lose weight. But like she lost like 30 or 40 pounds, but her mom lost like 160 pounds. Like that's the kind of overweight we're talking about. Anyway, so she lives with her aunt who's like really kooky. It's this small town. She ends up getting this job at the diner and like makes friends and like this stuff happens. And I know it was a different time period. It felt very early 2000s. And I know I'm not the demographic for this book, but I didn't really like it. I felt like not much happened. It was a very slow book. Not much happened. I was not very invested in any of the characters. And I think overall, by the end of the book, it had a very good message. I really did like the message it had. I just didn't really like getting there. And I'm not saying it was done badly. I think how we got there was fine. It was just boring. And I just didn't really care for this book. I was just like kind of bored, wanted something more to happen than it did happen. And yeah, I did read some reviews on Goodreads after I read it, and a lot of people were saying this is her worst book. So there's that. But yeah, 3 stars, meh. 2.5, meh. I don't know. Moving on. I read 3 audiobooks, I think. Yeah, I read 3 audiobooks. So the first audiobook I read was Champion, which is the 3rd book in the Legend trilogy. And I know I've talked about these recently because I think I've been reading about like 1 a month the past 2 months. But this is a YA dystopian series about this city where people take like altitude tests, and if you like score highly, you go into like the military. If you score like too low, you are like experimented on and killed. It's like that kind of dystopian society. And so the main characters are June and Day, and June scored a perfect score and she's in the military, and then Day scored a bad score and he was experimented on, but he got away and became like a vigilante. And so the first book is like June trying to like find him, like hunt him down because she's part of the military, and then it goes from there because there's like a rebellion and there's a lot of stuff happening, and the series gets very, very political, which I said last month when I was talking about the second book. And it's not that I didn't care for it after it got political, I just kind of lost interest in it. I just don't really care about like the politics, and it was just so politics heavy that I just kind of lost interest in it. And I kind of forgot what happened in the third book, to be honest. I think it is a really good series, and I think it's a YA dystopian series that came out after the Hunger Games that I think did a good job being a unique, good series that didn't just like jump on the dystopian bandwagon and try to like cash in on what Hunger Games started. I do think it's a good trilogy. I just don't think it was for me. The next audiobook I listened to was Out on a Limb by Hannah Bonham Young, I think. I loved this book so much. I said Summer Romance was my favorite romance I read this year. It's tied with Out on a Limb because I loved this book. This book is about this girl who's at this Halloween party her friend throws every year, and she meets this guy and they bond over something, and then they have a one-night stand. And then a few weeks later, she finds out she's pregnant. And so she tells him, you know, they decide, you know, what they're gonna do. I haven't read like any accidental pregnancy tropes, and I know a lot of people don't really like them, and I totally get why, but I've heard that a lot of people do like this book, and I think it was done very, very well. The book takes place like during her pregnancy. It's not like a time jump to like they have the baby. It's like the whole book is her pregnancy. So you get to see them like get to know each other and like decide how they're gonna raise the baby, and you see her grow as a person because like stuff's happened to her. She has different stuff about her, and like becoming a mother is like changing her for the better, and it's like made such a big difference in her life, and this guy now being in her life has also made such a big difference. And this book was just so beautiful. I said that about Summer Romance, but this book was also just so beautiful. I really loved both of the characters and like what they were going through in life and them together, and this book was just so oh, it was so, so good. I love this book so much, to the point where it's like I listened to it as an audiobook. I've already told my boyfriend that I need a copy for Christmas, and I even told him the cover I want, because I think both covers that I've seen are really cute, but I think the beach one is just really pretty, and I've told him he needs to hunt down a copy for me for Christmas. I loved this book so much. I don't rate audiobooks, but if I did, 5 stars. And the last audiobook I listened to in September was Tom Lake by Anne Patchett. I've seen a lot of people talk about this book, but I never knew what it was about, and I never really had interest in it because I knew it was just like fiction, and I usually don't reach for that. But I decided to read it, and it's basically this woman, this older woman, telling her children her life story. And that's kind of all I knew about it going into it. So what it actually, well, I mean, that's true, but like what it actually is it's set during COVID. So her grown children are back home on their cherry farm or whatever because of the pandemic, and they're like, you know, going stir crazy. And so their mom is like, hey, let me tell you the story of my life. And I just don't like when books mention COVID. Like, it always feels forced, like they're trying to be relatable. And I just don't, like, I don't know. There's very few that I've brought it up in a way that I feel like makes sense and isn't just putting it in your face. And I guess based off the premise I just said, this should have been one of those books where it like does make sense in the plot that they mention it, but I don't know. It just didn't. Anyway, so yeah, she's just telling her kids her life story starting as a teenager, how she got the role in a play she was in, and then where her acting career went from there, and how she ended up with their dad and on the farm. And not much happened. I kept expecting more to happen than what was happening. And it's not that I was interested. Like, I actually really did like the story. I thought it'd be a bit more juicy, and there were some reveals near the end that like I wasn't really expecting, but I just didn't. They weren't enough. And the audiobook is narrated by Meryl Streep, which she did a phenomenal job. Like, obviously, that was a big part of why I enjoyed it, the way she was reading it. But just like overall, I was just like kind of bored by the book. I don't know, I wanted more from it. Yeah, I guess I can kind of see why people talk about it the way they do, but like also, it was just kind of boring. So the only other books I have to talk about are more One Piece, because I did read 4 more One Piece in the month of September. I read volume 7, which is called The Crap Geezer, volume 8, which is called I Won't Die, volume 9, which is called Tears, and volume 10, which is Okay, Let's Stand Up. So yeah. These are the ones I read in the month of September. I have been reading these every month since June, I think, so you've probably heard me talk about them if you watch any of my other videos. But this is a manga series that is about a pirate named Monkey D. Luffy who is creating a crew to sail the ocean and find the One Piece, which is a treasure. And this is the first manga I've ever read. I'm really, really enjoying it. I think it's really, really funny. I really, really love Luffy a lot. He's so funny, but he also just has such a good heart. I just really love the character, and I'm really enjoying the series, and I will keep reading it, so you will keep hearing me talk about it every month, and I'll probably say the same thing every month, but yeah, I like it. I mean, I read 4 this month. Basically, every time I finish one of my like main physical reads, I read One Piece. So my last book I read in August, I finished like the last day of August, so then I read a One Piece, and then after I finished all 3 of these, I read a One Piece. So I read 4 this month, and I think I'm about 9% of the way through the series now, because there's over 100 volumes. But that's nothing compared to the over 1,000 episodes of the anime, which I will never get through, no matter how long I live. I like the anime, and reading the manga is making me want to watch more of the anime, but I do not have that kind of time in my life. I don't have that kind of time. But yeah, those are all 13 books I read in September, and those are my thoughts. I'm glad September is over. I had some good reads that I definitely enjoyed, but my personal life wasn't super great in September. I had some highlights, but I also had a lot of lows, and I'm ready to be into a new month. I'm ready for spooky season. I really love Halloween, and I'm ready to read some of my spooky books I have picked out, and I'm just ready for a new month with some better memories. And yeah, thank you for watching. Like I said, I have a reading vlog coming out of those 3 books, hopefully very soon. I have some other videos filmed that I need to edit and put out, so keep an eye out for those. Please watch more of my videos, and yeah, bye!